Good evening, you awesome people out there, and I apologize. I left that caption down below during the intro. Whoopsie. Anyway, I'm Scott, that's Davion, and that is Mr. Ryan O'Regan, and welcome to Tales from the Film Set on Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly make sure to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download wherever you are in the world, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. And lastly, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Good, got that out of the way. All right, we have a jam-packed show of topics we're going to be talking about today. Ryan's got one, I've got one, Davion might have one.
Well, here, one thing real quick. I just want to mention at the top of the hour. Why do I get the full name treatment, but Davion doesn't?
Okay.
He just said that's Davion.
Hey, how you doing?
Is he up to Prince Madonna status now?
Like, I can't rock that. Is that what it is? That's Ryan.
Like, O'Regan doesn't have enough stretch on it.
There's that better? Mr. Davion Boozy, Mr. Ryan O'Regan, and I'm just freaking Scott. Cool. Is that better?
Look, I just want fair is fair. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
It was. I ain't sweat it. I didn't sweat it. Don't look up.
I'm looking
Don't
up.
look up. Don't look
looking
up.
at my poster, but technically I'm looking at you.
Don't look up.
As I'm looking at the numbers diminish as this conversation goes on.
Okay.
Fine.
2 minutes. Oh, it got something back. All right. Anyway, yeah, like I said, we got a packed show we're going to be talking about today. Ryan will be kicking it off in a minute with some issues for the film Don't Worry, Darling, or the subtitle as we have, maybe we should. Cobra Kai will also be dropping on Friday, so I got my Eagle Fang shirt, and I will be going off on a massive rant on IMDB and Amazon's decision to start deleting written reviews of Rings of Power off IMDb if they happen to fall below 6. This is something that makes me very nervous. I have a lot of fear and anxiety for what this may actually hold grand scheme, but we will hold on that until basically, Ryan, the floor is yours. Go for it.
All right. So yes, before we go into Scott's heart attack over the rating system on IMDb, which of course Amazon does own, I did want to talk about the drama surrounding Don't Worry, Darling, the sophomore directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, which does come out this month. It has a great stellar cast in it. Florence Pugh, Chris Pine, Gemma Chan, and Harry Styles. Olivia Wilde's on again, off again, sort of boyfriend, girlfriend thing that they're doing while she was with Jason Sudeikis. But that stuff aside, it just premiered in Venice at the Venice Film Festival, and it has been the talk of much controversy as regards to inner workings behind the scenes, whether or not Shia LaBeouf was fired or quit from the production, whether or not Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde have had a falling out during the production, leading to Florence Pugh, basically the star of the film, not showing up for certain promotional necessities in order to tout the movie around, to even as far as whether or not Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine during the red carpet premiere this weekend in Venice. And the reason I want to bring this up is because we have had our own personal histories, not just with acting, but also from behind the scenes, from a filmmaking perspective. And I want to ask you guys, have you ever had to deal with controversy in your own productions? Now, obviously, Olivia Wilde has gone ahead and had quite a bit of it, from bringing in her boyfriend, Harry Styles, to play the role that Shia LaBeouf was originally slated for, to trying to lean on the marketing of the hypersexualized scene in which Harry Styles goes down on Florence Pugh that you see in the trailers, and Florence Pugh being like, that's not what I'm trying to promote with the film. It's a bigger thing than that, but obviously Olivia Wilde's kind of leaning more into it, saying, oh, it's a powerful feminist, pleasure stance. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think anybody's really going just to see Harry Styles go down on Florence Pugh. If they are, there's plenty of other websites to go and see that at. You don't need to go to the theater. But I want to know, have you guys ever had to deal with controversy in anything that you personally have had to work on? Because I feel like this is something that as actors becoming filmmakers, it's something that since we've worked on enough films, we want to try to like navigate and not deal with.
I'm letting him run
Olivia
first,
Wilde's gone on.
please.
Yeah, she's gone on credit as saying she's done a lot of crappy movies that help her learn what not to do in her films. And yet still, it seems like that sort of stuff follows. So, Davion, tell me about your experience with controversy behind the camera.
I raised my hand.
You did.
Maybe I missed it too. I thought you did.
I saw you waving.
I'm sure he was like one step away from doing a full-out jumping jack. It's like, me.
No, my hand. I'm trying to bring it down, but okay.
Didn't try hard enough. Go for it.
Yeah, I didn't, because I will never forget working on one set, and I'm not going to disclose what project it was. Director, sorry to say, he didn't do a good job being a director. He didn't handle it like he's supposed to, especially when somebody is giving him insight of there's a toxic person that's trying to take over the set, and you don't find out until certain people start dropping from the project.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you talk down to people, but you didn't handle the situation like you're supposed to with that particular person. But you will talk down to someone or other people that you feel as though, oh, they're not at the caliber I want them to be. And then you had other people on set that pretty much mistreated individuals or individual like they were, beneath them, not realizing that they had credentials and everything else compared to what they had. So they pretty much was shooting down on this person, and that person was, very upset. Mm-hmm. He wasn't happy with the production that he was involved in. And normally times it takes a lot for this individual to walk away from a project.
Okay.
And that individual walked away.
Mm.
And that person, cannot
Again, you can't name names, I know.
Yeah, can I blame the person for walking away? No. It was very toxic. And they had no choice. And then later on, the person that explained to them what was going on, now all of a sudden the director got hit with controversy amongst the set, and certain things didn't go the way he was expecting when he thought having that other people involved that the person was telling him about start taking advantage of the opportunity because, you're trying to get rid of me? This is what happens.
Well, fair. And I don't think anybody would ever question, to a certain extent, someone that said they didn't feel comfortable on set. Certainly, that goes in line with what I was stating before in regards to Florence Pugh and how, she is the star of the movie. So, I mean, it does say something when your main star, even if they are busy doing work elsewhere. Currently, she's working on Dune 2, and they're filming over in Budapest. So, not exactly the easiest place to, hop a train or a plane and get to Venice. But the fact that she's not showing up for promotional materials trying to push this movie, it does worry a lot of people as to whether or not the movie is going to be worthwhile. Now, some reviews have already come out from the fest saying Florence was fantastic, possibly Oscar nomination worthy. The movie itself, Now, as for Scott, I remember you telling us, like, if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, about the fantastic experience you had with
Carl
what was his name again?
Carl friggin' Weathers.
Carl friggin' Weathers. Okay.
Yes.
So we know about that grand
story
experience,
about him
but
anyway. He's not involved in the story I got.
But I have to wonder if you've had any negative experiences, not even just stuff that you've worked on, but maybe project of your own. Since I know you do a little bit more filmmaking than Davion does.
I don't have any on my own projects, typically because I don't do any of my own. I only do for others typically because I don't have the energy, the passion, the desire to sit there and micromanage that part of it. I did. Some people want to do it. I don't want to do it Now, what I am doing right now is I will not say on air what the project is, but if you look down at the chat, you two gentlemen, you will see the director of it, the name of the film, and also the main star from the film. This is a project that was 3 days of overnights. My income was cut by 2/3 without my knowledge, and I was deliberately paid as a non-union person so he would not have to pay pension and health. He feigned ignorance, even though he knew full well I was SAG. This was a film that was meant to officially be shown as fully shot 100%, 90 some odd minutes, one take. There have been films that have done that. Ray Abruzzo had a movie called Somebody Marry Me, and they legit did 90 minutes. And it was a criminally underappreciated film for that regard. But in this particular case, it was a film that we had done where the main character, whose name I put down at the bottom, and you know the couple of movies that she's in at this point, you don't even know the character. They had her in a plastic bag, a gigantic plastic bag, and were shoving chlorine scent into the bag because the character was being gassed while being tortured. Ooh. They left her in the bag with the air constantly still going into it, take after take after take, and did not take her out of it. She was on the phone with her agent immediately after this. She filed a grievance against SAG for this, not just because of stuff like that, but because they never got the legal permits on a SAG project to do squibs, to do stunt work. This was something where I talked to the arms guy, and he's like, "I'm just here to bring the weapons. I am not here." They did not bring a stunt coordinator for this. This was a project where his side piece, if you will, someone that he would bring in to schmooze potential investors. You know, he's been sitting on their lap and stuff like that. She had a gun in her hand with blanks in it. The gun jammed. At the time we found out later on we found out the safety was on. The gun wasn't working. So she's sitting there being like, "Can you help me with this? Can somebody help me with this? The gun's not working." Like effing here. To all of us. She's like, "Can you help me?" Did not realize that a gun with blanks in it can kill a person within 10 feet.
I.e. rust.
Yes. Rust. But this was before rust in this case. I mean, but that was live ammo. This was just blanks, which again can kill you.
Still kill you.
It was issues like this. It was 3 long, arduous overnights. I bled into my own. I had tan khakis on all 3 days. I bled into my own khakis because what they had me in was so tight, it caused me to bleed. And
larger people call that chafing.
Yeah. Everybody was miserable, and everybody was griping and complaining, and this was just an unbridled shitstorm. And it was a miserable experience, and nobody was happy, and everybody was complaining. And like I said, you had somebody in there who's got name credibility. They had their own show on CW for like 2 seasons. And you were sitting there and putting them in conditions where they have gas literally going into a bag surrounding them like this and just leaving it for authenticity. You know, not giving them actual, authentic, air.
Right. I mean, this isn't a NXS, Carradine, let me hold myself up in the closet with this stuff sort of thing.
Here's one of the things that they did is the gun was handed off to the AD, and the AD, we were inside a church, very hollow, sound church in this case. And he's like, "This is what it's going to sound like when it goes off. Bang." And he fires it straight into the ground, but doesn't notify us and doesn't notify the sound department who's still setting up. Sound heard it and was not prepped ahead of time that a gun was being discharged.
And that's not correct because,
no.
And the only reason I'm like, what the hell? Sorry.
It's all right. I said a few minutes ago.
For once, it's not me.
No, it's just proper weapon etiquettes in the production. You don't play around with props or guns. You got to treat the gun like it's a live weapon.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of the issues that a lot of directors or set crew don't get the understanding of, or even actors. You can't just wave the gun in somebody's face like that unless you're on set, unless there's no ammo in the gun, and y'all make sure thoroughly there's no bullets in there. Because you're supposed to do one take with no ammo and the other take with the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they messed up on because I'm sorry, I just had to pull this here. It's so annoying. But
yes, thank you for doing that on live camera. That's great.
I'm sorry. It's just so annoying. You know how you had that one strand of hair that's just stuck here? But sorry, I'm going off topic.
In my nose or in my ear. So I'll sit there.
At least it's on my face. I could be.
That's why we should have a podcast version of this, because I mean, I can only imagine people listening and then just all of a sudden be like, "What was he doing?"
Yeah.
But here we're watching you just like,
because it's so annoying. I'm sorry, but gun etiquettes in a set is. This is why you can't just have anybody on set. You have to have somebody that's licensed, that knows about weapons, knows about the guns. This is why I took the gun training, so I can learn the proper way to use the weapon on set. A lot of people don't know how to use weapons on set properly because they never held a gun. Never even went to training.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, you get things like the whole Alec Baldwin arrest thing from last year, which, is still being tangled up in legalese as of this point. But, I mean, considering Scott's story, that kind of makes my stuff pale in comparison, because mine's just a matter of casting.
Go for it.
Right. Same thing with mine, because to be honest with you, well, I'm not throwing it out there. I just, like I said, I know about weapons. I know the proper handles and handle a weapon, especially on set. You don't basically, and number two, you don't put the gun in the person's face. You hand the backside, make sure it's unloaded to the individual, and always have the gun down this way. Never pointing. Always
I feel like there should be a PSA with like McGruff the crime dog or something. I don't know.
But
just remember, it's not fun when you handle a gun.
Exactly. Especially if you're not using it to put it in somebody's face. If you put it in somebody's face, that means you're just doing it. Either you about to shoot somebody, but it's not supposed to be like that on set, especially if it's not a scene. Your proper way is to hold it downwards. So in case something happens, it shoots to the ground, not to anybody else. And even when you're basically handling or you're passing, you're supposed to pass the handle aspect to the person. And once you pass that, you make sure it's downward. So
I would almost love to see like Day actually do this on set, and he'd be the one that drops it and it goes off and be like, ah!
Actually,
be honest with you,
like that they did in movies.
But be honest with you, no, I've been very professional when it comes to that, because
you could take it a step further. When I was in Scouts, we had when we used to hand stuff off, usually with handing off a knife, but we would always say thank you and you're welcome. So you hand it off, the person says thank you, not just to be polite, but also to notify you they have a grip on it, and then you say you're welcome, because that's a signal to know that that you're letting go.
Right.
It's a communication within there, and I see that on film sets a lot too, where that thank you, you're welcome still happens. I like it personally. I've had people on set, BG would be like, and I'm like, yeah, fire them, please.
I just love how I started off this conversation with like one person spitting on another, and all of a sudden we got to like proper gun handling. Like, oh man, deep seated.
But you know what? I guess it had to be said, because we got too many accidents when it comes to weapon usage on set.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, there's the controversies that you hear about, the stuff that gets out into the news. Obviously, the kind of stuff that can go ahead and even potentially derail an upcoming film, like we've seen with Rust, like we've seen with other accidents that have happened on film. And, controversy being what it is, controversy can be as small as, say, one actor having an issue with the other one on set before like the money finally comes through. And it could be just as big as, say, like a community wanting a whole production not to be done in that area. Controversy is going to follow a production regardless. It's just a matter of how you handle it. Now, some people could say, in the case of Don't Worry, Darling, Olivia Wilde has tried her best to handle it with a moniker of dignity and stoicism, and isn't trying to feed into the internet rabble about what was said, what was done, this and that. She's praising Florence Pugh, even Pugh was not there. She's not getting into the minutia of Harry Styles, considering their dating history and her casting him in the film, which obviously made some people awkward. She's handling it like a boss. And I would want to believe that if any of us had something to do in that scale, where, we were doing something that was getting a good amount of promotion, and say something controversial was threatening to derail it, I'd want to believe that we would be able to handle it just as calmly as she did, and more power to her for being able to handle it. Um, the thing that gets me is that all that stuff, all that controversy, that's a big thing for the industry. But as far as like an actual movie watcher, it's the kind of stuff that can confuse them.
Right.
When it gets out into the public, if you're hearing all sorts of nonsense that has nothing to do with what actually happens on the camera, and then you start thinking, okay, well, I was interested in this movie when I saw the trailer, but I hear all these negative things about it. Right, but it has nothing to do with the movie.
But the thing about it is, sometimes negative could be a good publicity or a bad one.
Well, yeah, there was always that old phrase, no press is bad press, or
Nope.
something of that nature.
Yeah. But at the same time, because people want to get the dirt. They want to know what's going on. So that's the positive aspect.
Right, but I think that was back in the time when there was just the tabloids. When you're talking about a time when a lot of news that you heard about a movie production pretty much came directly from the main news sources and not anything else. Now we live in a time where between Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, whatever have you, there's so many outlets now where like no story doesn't get unturned.
Right.
And you get almost an overflow of knowledge and information that ultimately some stuff can derail a good movie, even though it has nothing to do with the movie.
Right. And, in 9 times out of 10, it could also mess up production. It could also mess up the performance, because these are the things you don't want on your set. You want less drama on your set. Right. You want everybody communicating or, in a positive light, know what they're doing. If they mess up, it's encouraging, like, okay, you messed up, keep going. Keep going.
Right. You want your production and your stars to leave this set and go out into the world and say, this was a fantastic experience. I was happy to be a part of it. I can't wait for you people to see it. All that good stuff. Mm-hmm. When you're not getting necessarily all that, even from the star of your film. I remember back when Edward Norton, when he played Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk, he was bashing that movie. Like, he would go on Letterman and stuff, and he was just bashing the film and how it approached and how the writing and everything. He was not a fan of that film when asked about it. And ultimately, that was a big reason for him not even being brought back.
Yeah.
It's like that was the second movie of the MCU. Think about it. Like, if the other movies had gone down the same route, we may not have an MCU if their second movie is being bashed by the lead actor of the film.
The only difference I'll say in that case is that the MCU was still in its infancy, and there wasn't the expectation on the MCU that there is now.
Fair.
People, I think back then, if you remember, people looked at Iron Man. It's like, okay, that was a nice film. Okay, that Robert Downey Jr. cool, but you had some X-Men films. You had at that point 3 Spider-Man films. But it wasn't like the all-encompassing, all-engrossing comic book franchise, medium that it is now.
Right.
I think when an Avengers eventually happened, I think that's when really it kicked into gear. But up until that point, it was like, oh yeah, cool. We had another Marvel movie. All right, they're doing nice with these little funny movies here. So getting a dud in there, or the perceived dud, is not that big of a deal because there was less expectation at that point.
Right. I think the issue with Incredible Hulk was because it was coming not just off the heels of Iron Man, but it was the first time we had really seen like a Marvel reboot after Ang Lee's Hulk with Eric Bana.
Right.
And how much that got lambasted.
Right.
And while Incredible Hulk was certainly an improvement, and now because of She-Hulk, we're actually getting, reaping in some of the fruit of that endeavor. If you looked at it then, you'd be like, well, okay, do I want to see this Thor thing coming out? Do I want to see the kid that played Human Torch being Captain America? They lucked out. They have to say they lucked out.
Yeah.
But again, that sort of stuff can derail a production very easily before people even see it. Whether it's about the film or it's not about the film. And,
Right.
I want, if anyone takes anything away from this whole conversation before we go into Lord of the Rings, if you want to see a movie, go and see the movie. It may be good, it may be bad, but go with your own instinct as to whether or not you want to experience that. Don't worry about the rumor mill. Don't worry about what he said on Twitter or whatever. Don't worry about any controversies that necessarily follow the actor. And then, yes, I know this saying in the wake of the Ezra Miller Flash stuff, which even he's now working on. But am I still going to see the Flash regardless of Ezra Miller's actions?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I think he should be able to benefit after the movie, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad? Remains to be seen. But I certainly do not want the production to falter based off the actions of one person, especially when those actions have no actual connection to anything that happened on or behind the scenes.
Correct. And also for those who's watching this as an education and learning how to work on sets and getting ideas behind the scenes from our show, when you basically, I'm going to say it this way, when you hire people, make sure they have a track record. Always ask for an IMDb. Please, God. If they don't have an IMDb,
that's because as Scott's going to get into, IMDb is certainly the most reputable of places.
No, he's right. It may not matter no more, but at the same time, it does because you understand the work ethic of that individuals.
Fair, yes.
So I'm just gonna leave
if you
that.
see that it's on there, you'll know that they were involved, which is part of the problem they had with what Adam DeKay and was it Tim Schiff, the two people that did Rings of Power. They had one IMDb credit before this, and both of them were uncredited on Star Trek Beyond. So that was, like I said, a massive concern there in a lot of ways. Okay, so should we let me roll here?
Yes, sir.
Well, yes, because while speaking of IMDb, Scott certainly has some issues with the famed website. Not so much because of the actors, not so much because of the productions that are or not listed, but because of the user aggregated reviews that are allowed or not allowed on the platform. Scott, go ahead.
Yes. Let me start this off by pulling this up. This, by the way, I pulled this up this morning. I don't know how well you can necessarily see that, but those are IMDb ratings for two of the films that I was in. Now, this in your case, basically, it's a little bit of a distance for you. One film on the left, one film on the right. The one on the right, by the way, was directed by the guy I talked about before. Not the same film, same guy though. Now, when you look at these IMDb ratings for these two films, by the way, one has a 1.8 rating out of 10, and the other has a 50% higher 2.7 rating out of 10. What stands out on the chart on the left and the chart on the right?
Well, one could argue that one is relatively a flip of the other.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of ones on one side, a bunch of tens on the other.
Correct. There's a certain difference in votes,
right?
Primarily, like the one has no one liked it at an 8, so I mean that's surprising.
Yeah. By the way, both these movies have people that have name recognition. You know them if you mention. So it's not like some really, really low end horror film. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I recognize X, Y, and Z person. The film on the left has a ton of 1-star ratings. The film on the right has a bunch of 10-star ratings. Now, is the one on the left hate bombed? Is the one on the right love bombed? We don't know. We can't say for sure. My problem is, and this is where my concern is with something like this. Now, like I said, these are just two movies that I was in that frankly did not do well in any facet or regard. But IMDb, which is owned by Amazon, has now been deleting user reviews if they fall below 6. So back a few days ago on IMDb, there was about 200 reviews. Now it sits at 74 and has not been updated since September 2nd. The lowest rating on a written review now is 6. So anything basically from 1 to 5 is gone, wiped, disappeared. So, Ryan, if you recall, when I was talking about Rings of Power, if you recall, gave this movie, or this TV series, first 2 episodes, I gave it a 6 out of 10. It was okay. Not great, not spectacular, not terrible, just kind of just there. My critique on it was centered around the same critique a lot of people had. The pacing was odd and the characters were more or less unrecognizable and you kind of don't remember. So Black Elf guy, I think his name is like Arendor or something. The girl he's interested, don't remember her name. The kid, I don't remember the name. The older brother
was the girl.
Yeah, don't remember.
Theo was the boy because we were doing the Cosby stuff about Theo.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was Theo.
Dave's saying, "Wait, I don't remember a kid like that."
That was episode 2.
That was more second episode stuff.
In this case, like I said, the biggest gripe that people had is that the characters were kind of forgettable. There was a lack of action scenes, and the pacing was odd. I pointed out basically the rock breaking scene where it's like break a rock, boom, move on to the next scene. It's like, where the hell was that edit? The same issues that people had. The problem that I have, and this is what scares me, and this is a big concern, is it going to stop here? Amazon dropped $465 million into season 1 outside of the $250 they paid for the rights to this. Their own site, they're deleting negative reviews. Now, this is something that Rotten Tomatoes has done in the past, and it has been a semi-badly kept secret that Rotten Tomatoes has deleted bad user reviews in the past. But never before has anybody come out and said, yes, we are deleting bad reviews. They're saying it's because of trolls and haters and things like that. And that's, if you want to call it that, that's fine. I call it, you spent almost $750 million and heads will roll if you say you F this up. So what do? You blame shift. You blame someone else so you don't have to assume responsibility and you don't have to lose your job and get blacklisted. IMDb is being deleted like this to protect the reputation of Amazon and the series that they dropped $750 million for on season 1. What scares me is this going to be the end of it? Are we going to have movies and TV shows in the future where user reviews, which can sometimes be very honest and very forthcoming, will be deleted because they're not a high enough score to protect the money that was spent to get that project off the ground? This is what scares me. This might just be the very beginning of something much grander and much worse.
So pretty much.
No, go ahead, Dave.
So pretty much, somebody could be a big name in a project, but the movie could be crappy, and somebody can express their opinion based off of their knowledge or what they feel as though the film should be like. And let's say if I said, okay, I'm going to give this film a 1 because I'm not impressed with the performance. I'm not impressed with the story. It was written poorly, and they could delete it. You're just basically getting rid of freedom of speech.
Yes, and freedom of opinion. Now one of the comments that I have on here, and this is on the IMDb, I say this as someone who's enjoyed the show so far. Deleting the negative written reviews of your own program on what is supposed to be a completely user-driven database is abhorrent, slimy, corrupt, and has completely tainted my view of the show. This serves as a stark reminder that Professor Tolkien would have despised Amazon and everything that rotten company represents. IMDb existed long before Amazon, and it is not their personal promotion tool. 565 likes on that. And that's on IMDb's forum. Because basically right now what you're doing, like you said, it's removing freedom of speech and the freedom to have an opinion of your own if it's not in line to everyone else. Now, let me say this. I have logged hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours in the last few months into Streampunk Media, this company that I'm building that you guys are both part of. I will never, ever do that. If something we do is shit, you tell me. The only request that I have is that basically, A, you be respectful about your opinion, and B, if you can, offer criticism and critiques on how we can improve. Some of you guys have already done that with some of the videos that I've put out. The Rocky IV video, I made a mistake on that. Someone called me out. I fixed the mistake. I sent them a private message and said, thank you. because it was a mistake that I legitimately made when it came to one of the 5 facts, and I fixed that. I will never, ever, ever, ever delete a bad review. I will not play that game ever.
Right. And be honest with everybody, I never delete. I always tell people, thank you for your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you feel as though the film was crap, thank you for your honest opinion. I greatly appreciate it. Because you know what? Regardless if it's bad publicity or you basically, it's called freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom to your own opinion. And this is what America is all about. Have we done some things that during the past we basically disagreed on? And you see what happened. But at the same time, we should have a right to express how we feel about something, but in a respectful manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem. A lot of us can't do it respectfully because it's always about me. It's
that's
not
true.
about
poor communication, sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's not about fixing the situation or coming to an understanding of what the person is trying to say, representation. And I think that's the biggest problem right now. And I hate going political about it, but you know, it kind of leads to it because guess what? A lot of these shows that we have now is basically adding political agendas in. So, you know, are we going to say, oh, we don't like this because X, Y, and Z? Perfect example, She-Hulk episode.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was like saying to me at a restaurant, they was like, they didn't understand how She-Hulk could say that she always had to hold her or it's always mad all the time, while the Hulk, or be discriminatory, while the Hulk is always mad because he's trying to avoid the government, everything else. But
his friends died.
Yeah.
People trying to kill him. No one's trying to kill She-Hulk.
Yeah. You know, his 2 closest friends die. The woman he loves, commits suicide to save the world.
Yeah. But like I explained somebody, I was like, because you got to look at it this way. Yes, there is an agenda, but it does make sense what she said because there's more to it than just what she said. You're not walking and looking behind your back 24/7 as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a man, yeah, we look, but it's not as much as women because you got predators out there. You got people that's trying to kidnap them. You got people that's trying to use them as, you know, prostitution and stuff like that. And you got,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
You know, yeah, well, you know, what the Hawk went through, yeah, it is serious, but women been through it throughout their lives, even when they didn't have rights. So women were holding stuff in.
But I think the point being in that particular case is that on one hand, she's like, okay, I'm being catcalled and men are jerks. And she's saying this to the guy who, like I said, had the entire government trying to kill him, which was, by the way, run by his girlfriend's father, lost 2 of his closest friends. The woman he fell in love with later would end up committing suicide in Endgame. It's kind of like, I think he's got a right to be angry,
Right.
I mean, dude, men and women grab my junk at parties. I don't like it, but I'm not going to sit there and go full out rage Hulk just because of some douchebag doing something. I mean, unfortunately, in my case right here, I have been to enough, opening parties and things like that where some people get a little handsy. There's free alcohol
and
flowing.
You didn't invite me.
There is one movie in particular where there was one dude and he did the full reach around, the freeze in the front. I mean, everywhere I went, so did his hand, and that's what she's talking right here, where she's being catcalled and this kind of stuff, but here's the thing. I'm not going to rage out and beat the living crap out of somebody for it. I just accept them as being somebody who's got their own issues in this case, whatever they're going through. Okay, fine. Not my cup of tea. Most, usually when I get hit on by gay people, they're really polite about it. But once in a while, like I said, you get somebody who's a little drunk, and me, I'm just personable at parties, and I think it comes across the wrong way. So of course I get, hand goes down, tries to go right down my pants. I'm like, wait a minute here. But this regard, like I said, I guess back to my original point, what scares me is what if Disney has the next series, phase 5, phase 6, phase 7, whatever it is, and people have low ratings on it. And as a result, Disney will use the influence they have to have IMDB pull bad ratings, to have Rotten Tomatoes continue to pull ratings like they've been, to be able to protect the money that went into it, to say, well, this had a really good rating because of this. When the reality is maybe your product is just fast food, which a lot of products are right nowadays, because there's so much streaming competition alone. What do you have? You have Apple, you have Disney, you have Hulu tied together, Netflix, HBO Max, not counting regular cable, not counting regular broadcast. There is so much more content being thrown in our faces that everybody is trying to keep up with everybody else. And as a result, they're taking some shortcuts in certain regards in order to get the product out faster. And the fans are noticing, which is why they're low rating a lot of this stuff. A lot of the complaints that people came about with Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, is the fact that the armor looked, frankly, paled by comparison to Peter Jackson. Those chainmail in Peter Jackson's movies were put together by hand by people who would ultimately lose the fingerprints on their fingers. 12,500 pieces of individual armor put together by hand, and they're sitting there doing this. And that's what gave the Lord of the Rings movies the beauty that it had. A lot of people are looking at that, comparing it to the money that went to Rings of Power and saying, this looks shoddy by comparison. And Amazon's like, well, we can't have that. You're a troll. Conversation's gone. Review is gone. You're a hater. You're a misogynistic, racist pig. No, I just think your product's crap. People are not allowed to say your product's crap anymore if a lot of money's being put into the product.
Right.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate for a sec?
Please.
Yeah.
All right.
Freedom of opinion.
If somebody, first of all, if somebody is rating a television series less than a 6 out of 10 because the armor in a couple of scenes looks flimsy, I'm not going to necessarily listen to that rating. All right? I want ratings that are going to be by people who have seen the product and at least have a singular opinion about the show as a whole.
Right.
Not what the costuming looks like, not whether or not some characters are the color that they're supposed to be in Tolkien lore, nonsense reasons. And you can see it on other sites other than on IMDb, where Amazon has no prime control over, that there is certainly a distance from the critics and people who are a little bit more maybe wiser and a little bit maybe they definitely did watch the stuff, and the user ratings, which we don't know whether or not these people even watch the things. If you look on Metacritic, which is obviously a much more touted aggregator, the season Metascore for that is at a 71. The season user score is at a 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to go to Rotten Tomatoes, which is like the end-all be-all aggregation of reviews, so far the series itself, on the average tomato meter, is sitting at an 84%. The average audience score, 39. Now, you're going to tell me that all those people that are disliking the show are actually people that dislike the show and no other reason? We've already heard about many times in the past where series or movies have been hate reviewed or troll bombed or whatever have you, simply because of politics and different societal norms being in question. I have nothing against necessarily Amazon taking a tool that they own. It's their property, and they are using it as such in order to help promote their show by not necessarily saying, oh, it's all perfect. They're at least allowing the 6s, which I think a 6 score means it's average. But I at least think that, and it's been reported, for the first 72 hours, they did this for the premiere of the show in order to limit how many negative, uninformed user reviews may have been submitted, so that this way they can go ahead and they can go through it properly. And even right now, it sits at only a 6.8, so it's not exactly doing gangbusters, even by reducing the fan scores, which, you know, even your greatest critic will say IMDb is probably the worst place you can go to for an actual, numerical review, because you have fans that will go ahead, or fans that will go ahead and post a review long before something even premieres, and it'll stay there. No one will delete it. It doesn't get deleted by Amazon. It doesn't get deleted by the production. It doesn't get deleted by anybody. So for me to go ahead and think IMDb is going to be the end all be all, it isn't. Certainly, it's a great resource for information, but I'm not going to go to it for any kind of like logistic, informative review.
By the
And
way,
that's
just to
just the
point out,
half
they
of it.
have not
Unfortunately,
updated. They have
that's
not
what
updated
Amazon
the written
owns, and if
reviews.
they want to clear that up, then fine. I don't see it being the big controversy, unfortunately, that Scott does.
I don't see it as a controversy in and of itself. I see.
Oh, JT. I
I
would
don't
love
see
to
it as a
have you on the
controversy
review,
by
man.
itself.
Where were you Thursday night? Probably working.
What
What am
scares
I
me
saying?
about this, and this is, like I said, this is the problem. It's sequestering people's opinion.
Right.
Because here's the thing: I gave it a 6. If I gave it a 5, you listen. You heard what I said. You know, I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was just kind of there. I said right from, from the beginning to the end, I said this will end up being something that's largely a footnote at best. When you think RoboCop, you don't think 2014, you think 1987. This will fall into kind of that same category where it's like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Where that's what's going to end up happening there. Amazon does not want that for the product that they put that much money into.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I had put that rating as a 5, my rating would have been deleted because it was not high enough for IMDb to say, okay, and I came close to making that a 5. But usually for me, I typically have a tendency to go a little more optimistic with a lot of my ratings anyway. When I was a screener for film festivals, they had this complaint all the time. So my problem is are you going to get trolls? Yes. Are you going to get people that are peeing all over themselves? Yes. There were 10 ratings on IMDb weeks before this thing came out. So you're talking about how there were 1 ratings? Yes, there were. But there were 10 ratings also well before this thing was released. So you can't say that those people who never saw it can give it a 10, just like you can't say that those people who never saw it can give it a 1.
No, but what I'm saying is if you already see the big number and it's a 6.8 and they're only allowing reviews from 6 and up, obviously they're still allowing the negatively numbered reviews to stay in. They're simply not showing the written out review of what people have to say. But the numbers are still being counted.
So let me ask you this. By the way, it's been 4 days now since they shut it down. The last review was was September 2nd for written reviews. The written reviews start coming out, say, you have another 6.5 weeks of this show, or 6 weeks of the show. If people start coming in and having complaints about X, Y, and Z, dubbing issues, bad special effects, weird choreography, pick something, whatever it is. Just not to say it's going to happen, but let's pretend for a second it does. And then people come in and was like, that episode was crap, and this episode, I give it a 2. Is Amazon going to delete that 2 just because it's below the threshold of what they will accept?
No, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter what Amazon does on IMDb. If something is really that bad enough, there are a lot of other sources where people can go, other more legitimate, non-Amazon owned sources in order to get the real story. If something is truly that crappy, you're going to hear about it from Twitter before you're going to hear about it from IMDb.
The layperson doesn't know that.
But the people that are on the internet and doing these sort of things, that group of people that want to do online reviews themselves, which, hey, we're all guilty of in our own right, those are the people that will. Your general layperson that has like no connectivity to the internet in that regard, or maybe has no connectivity to any social media, they're simply going to watch the show and they'll either like it or they won't. They won't necessarily have to go ahead and tout around their opinion.
I just think basically what this is a start of something to come. That I
understand that it's
that's what scares
cautionary tale, but again, to take your wording, I would say it's a footnote in it.
Yeah,
I would say this is a footnote in regards to the caution and the possibilities that could happen with this, because it's again, you're talking about an organization, you're talking about a platform that is owned by the person putting out the film. Look, let's face it. If we went ahead and we owned Amazon and we were putting out something on Prime Video, we would want it to do well, correct?
Obviously, yes.
Right. And if we had enough money invested in the thing, we would definitely want it to do well, would it not?
Yes, but I'm going to say no
Right.
to what I think you're going to be saying.
But
Yeah.
regarding that, you can't necessarily stop everything. And obviously, based upon the star rating, they didn't stop everything. But they have certainly put on the best possible face that they can. Now, that's
But
not
what-
necessarily going ahead and stifling anybody if they're still keeping the star ratings and they're just letting people read what people have to say. If people want what they had to say to mean so much importance, then they'll put it on every platform they can. They're not just going to rely on IMDb.
I think Amazon's also hurting their reputation with this.
Do you think Amazon cares about their reputation? We're talking about a company that's gone ahead and put people through slave labor in their facilities. We're talking about a company that does put out quality material. It's not like this is the only thing that they've really been putting their haunches on. So they have good stuff. Hell, the premiere of Rings of Power itself is the biggest global premiere that Amazon has ever had, at 25 million people watching it around the globe. Bigger than The Boys, bigger than Invincible, bigger than anything else that they've premiered, movie or show-wise. So they
And
don't
what happens
really
week
have
three?
to do much tampering, if they're doing any tampering at all.
Ryan, you shut your mouth about The Boys and Invincible. You shut your mouth.
I didn't make up the numbers. You go ahead and you check online. It is Amazon's largest premiere.
And Ryan, what happens weeks 3 through 8? People watch the first 2 out of morbid curiosity. Now they know what it is. That number is going to drop to below 10 million. I guarantee it. That's my prediction for week 3.
If it does, then it does. But you know what? Let them at least go off on the right foot. Let them at least do whatever they can to promote the show as much as possible and be able to get as much eyes on it. And you know what? Like you said, certain controversy, no bad press.
I don't
how
believe
many
that.
people are really
I disagree
talking
with that
about?
100%.
Oh, well, they're stifling the reviews, bomb the show, and everything. No, they're more concerned about that the second episode was at least better than the first one, and they're trying to compare it to Game of Thrones, which, if you look on Rotten Tomatoes, they're pretty much evenly rated.
For now,
let us just see where this actually goes without lambasting it on the first drop out of the gate.
Listen, one of the complaints, we got to wrap this up. So, D, if you're going to be quick, I'll say one more thing on that, but go ahead.
This reminds me of AEW versus WWE at this moment.
Let's not get into controversies with wrestling at this point. AEW has got a whole look. You want to talk about issues behind the scenes? You want to talk about user ratings and stuff like that? AEW's got all that. Okay,
so
here's the one thing I want to say. I got to wrap it up on this, and I get the Cobra Kai, but that's fine. I put on Facebook my opinion. It was like, it was okay. It wasn't great. 6 out of 10. Some of the people that commented back, and I respect their opinion. They're like, well, you have to give it a shot because it's only you're only 2 episodes in. I don't have time personally to do that. I have 3 senior citizen close-knit relatives that I have to handle, including one upstairs right now that lives with us. I have to basically make sure that I will work all hours necessary to make sure my wife and I have health insurance. I am building Streampunk Media. I have all the things that I do. I write for NYCFC, Rock and Boulders. I got guys that are covering, other sports teams, other talking about, I have all of these things that are going on with my business, my side hustle, and the family going on right now. I do not have the time to sit and wait for them to get their shit in gear. I'm done. I moved on because you know what? You didn't catch me fast enough. And that's where a lot of people are going to think about this because they're like, my life, life takes over. Everybody's got stuff that I've got. I'm not saying I'm any different from anybody else here, but the point being is that if I'm going to use what limited downtime I've got, I'm not going to use it on something that's going to be, I'm going to use it on basically stuff that I really want to watch. Right now, I'm rewatching Archer.
And I'm going to agree with Scott because I regret wasting a whole Saturday watching Attack on Titan season 1. I wasted my life, my one day watching that show, and it never gave me no conclusion.
Dude, they haven't finished the manga has already finished on that of like a year ago. I would go with the manga first before the anime. My take only, because especially if you want to finish the series and get through it a little bit faster. Also, the anime has not finished yet, so the 3rd part of the 4th season is coming in January. I understand how that felt. But again, like I said, for something like this, with the limited amount of time that I've got, as soon as I'm done here, I got to go help out my mother-in-law with some stuff upstairs, and I got to edit videos for tomorrow and Friday. I'm going pretty much back to work. Rings of Power, not a good use of my time right now. Maybe at the end of the season, I'll take another look, but not right now.
So for this Friday's watch along, watch Davion and myself probably go through this as Scott is jumping out. No, you're not doing it either.
I'll see if I can dig up somebody for you.
Okay, just to let everybody know, Thursday and Friday is going to be the film festival.
Yeah, so you happen to be in New Jersey or the New York, New Jersey area.
Exactly. It's the Newark International Film Festival.
Nice.
Check the Eventbrite. Look us up. Come through. We got some good fire films. Come check it out.
We should have a link somewhere that they can go to and check that out.
I'll send it.
Good.
We got to wrap this up. We're already behind at this point. So thanks as always, Ryan. I appreciate the input that you have because counterpoints are great to help me learn. Of course, Davion.
He's still basically saying F you. That's fine. That's okay.
No. Listen, no. I will. Oh, listen. Here's the one thing about me. I would always rather be smarter than right. If I'm right, fine. But being smarter and learning something carries with me forever. Being right's just an ego trip. So.
And thankfully, I have both. Yes.
Catch you guys later. Take care.
Good to go.